won't be any football played, but it'll be talked about for the next 2 hours right here on Bird 365 with your Mac and Mac guys, John McMullen and Jody McDonald. And we've got almost 2 hours to shoot the breeze about the birds and a lot of things in the world of football. But I got to start here, Johnny Mac. Kind of a weird thing. About 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, this past morning, I realized I woke up, I was having a dream that Aaron Rodgers had signed with the New York Jets. And I didn't know where this friggin' dream was coming from. But it was almost so real that I had to turn on the TV in my bedroom to see if I could get a re-air of SportsCenter, because I figured it'd be the top story, it'd be on the crawl or whatever else. And sure enough, we just punched up our login to do today's show. And the first commenter on our screener says, did the Jets acquire an Aaron Rodgers yet? Eagles
maybe he had the same dream. Well, it's going to happen, so that's probably where it came from. It's not exactly off the wall.
Right, but it was real. He was already a Jet in my dream, and it hasn't officially happened yet. But, yeah, there are a lot of signs pointing to it happening, including, did you see the thing from Sauce Gardner yesterday?
Yeah, I don't know how much Sauce is involved with.
You don't think the Jets are whispering in his ear what they're planning on doing? He's tied in, and he sure as hell. He's a confident young man.
Yeah,
when he talks with the way he plays,
I'm not sure Joe Douglas is running things by him, but
fighting in Sauce, you're not sure. But he yesterday said, for those of you who don't know, he did say, "Don't be surprised when we get Aaron Rodgers if it's not a package deal." Meaning they're going to bring a whole bunch of his Green Bay cohorts along.
Well, I'm not sure that part of it's good, because if you're bringing Randall Cobb over and Robert Tonyan, two of Rodgers's favorites, probably not a good thing. I don't know. David Bakhtiari, is he a free agent? I don't know. But he's a really good player, yeah. But he's not healthy. He hasn't been healthy in like 2 seasons. But I guess that's worth a flyer. Who's the Jets left tackle? Can't think of it.
Big guy who's always hurt there. First round.
Yeah. That's a tough decision.
Kai Becton.
Yeah,
he looks good sitting on the sidelines. I got to tell you, Kai looks like a football player. He's almost never in a football uniform, but he looks like a football player. You got
that's sort of the comment. You want the young guys always hurt, or the old guys always hurt? But the old guys done it, so.
Really weird. I woke up at 4 o'clock and I'm looking for the damn remote control in the bed. Let me get SportsCenter on here. Maybe it happened. Maybe we're talking about it on Monday. No, but we're here to talk about the Eagles more than anything else. And there was some quote unquote breaking news yesterday, John. Do you want to talk the Eagles roster move or the Eagles coaching move first?
I guess coaching, because it's, I think people were excited that it wasn't Matt Patricia as the new linebackers coach. I think, for whatever reason, well, we know why, but, you got an unknown, former Temple defensive coordinator only for 1 season, and Temple wasn't very good last year. He's never been a pro coach before. And we'll see. We'll see how it works out. He's got some history with some of the Eagles players, not the meaningful ones. Kyron Johnson, he was out in Kansas with Kyron. He was out in Colorado with Davion Taylor. So we'll see. I mean, he's got more experience than Nick Rollis, and everyone seemed to like Nick. So you can look at it, but kind of an unknown.
Been coaching on a major college level for close to a decade now. So it's not like he's coming in wet behind the ears, but as you correctly pointed out, 0 NFL head coaching ability, but the Eagles believe they can develop a guy like this. But they do now have serious Temple ties, since they took the Temple defensive coordinator and former Temple Masters graduate as their new defensive coordinator. I guess that's where you go to when you're trying to build a program. You want to steal from the Temple Owls. You want to dip in to that Temple Owl gridiron pool. Matt Rule did get a job this offseason, right? He's going to be like Nebraska's new head coach. He's not available.
Yeah, okay, maybe. And, people have kind of speculated that. Well, Sean, was out of Temple long before DJ Eliot got there. So, I don't know if there's any other than, Temple Pride. I don't know if there's any connection there. Hey, it's not Matt Patricia, so everybody's happy. That's about all you can say. Now, it'll be interesting. He's been a defensive coordinator at the college level for a pretty significant period over, a number of different schools. But he's also kept his foot. He played linebacker at Wyoming. He's kept his foot. He also, at the college level, you got to do two things, really. You got to be the coordinator, plus you got to coach a position. So he's always kept the linebackers. So he's got a lot of experience, and we'll see who he's working with. I mean, number one, I would think the first part of that job is get Nakobe Dean up and running. And we'll see. We'll see if he can do it.
The one thing that I found interesting, he's a young guy, relatively young guy, even though inexperienced on the NFL level, had some success. Certainly be willing to give him a chance. But the thing that jumped out at me, that surprised me, was he's like a known 3-4 guy that they bent over backwards to keep certain tenets in place of this defense, even with the changing in the coaching staff that's been there, with the Fangio philosophy, if I can use that phrase. The Fangio philosophy is not 3-4. It's more 5-2 than it is 3-4. And the Eagles this past year had an outside linebackers coach and an inside linebackers coach. They had an edge coach, which, if you want to consider Hassan Reddick a linebacker. I know that always gets John fired. He's not a friggin' line. Stop calling him a linebacker.
Well, you know why I say that, Jody? Because, and I blame the NFL. And if I become NFL commissioner, nobody's called me yet, but if I become NFL commissioner, I'm going to make people label things correctly, because I really do think it fails to advance the talk. And I think people, how many times you hear 4-3, 3-4? Is you 4-3 guys at 3? Nobody plays that in the NFL today. Nobody. There's never 3 linebackers on the stinking field.
Three linebackers. There aren't even, and in a 3-4, you would be stating there are 4 linebackers on the field. And you're right. Yeah. There aren't even 3 anymore. It's 2. It's 2 linebackers on almost every single play.
It's just so frustrating. And then, when you have an edge rusher like us, it's funny because it hurts from a contract standpoint as well. You have these the Travis Kelce's of the world, who's really more of a receiver than a tight end. So when you start talking contracts, well, receivers get paid more than tight ends. Well, Travis Kelce's one of the best receivers in football. Whatever you want to label him as, he's one of the best receivers in football. He's going to the Hall of Fame because of his receiving ability. But, the label is not, it's incorrect, or at least it's not full. And when you talk about same thing with Hassan Reddick, well, you better damn well be labeled a defensive end over or an outside or an edge rusher or an outside linebacker than an all-ball linebacker, because one gets paid and one doesn't. So it hurts on so many levels, and they just won't stop it. And what really gets me, you got me going, you got me grinding my gears. What really gets me is when media people do. I'm like, come on, you know better than that. Don't call freaking Hassan Reddick a linebacker. Stop it. It just creates disinformation, misinformation.
It's you get more absolutely worked up about this than me. I think it's maybe I assume incorrectly that people understand that linebacker, edge rusher, you just know what Hassan Reddick is, and how it's labeled becomes rather irrelevant. But if you do get put off,
the reason why.
So here's my question to you: do you think DJ Eliot will be coaching Hassan Reddick?
No, Jeremiah Washburn is still here. He's going to be the off-ball linebacker coach. So he's the TJ Nakobe Kaiser White coach. Jeremiah Washburn's still here. Now, they haven't fully announced their coaching staff, but there's no evidence he's going to be fired. So He's been here over multiple coaching staffs, so he did a tremendous job. I wouldn't imagine they're getting rid of him for that. So no would be my quick
Agreed.
answer.
So that's why him being a 3-4 linebacker devotee during his college defensive coordinator Dave's doesn't really seem to fit with what he's going to be asked to do here for the Eagles. But if they like the guy, they think he's a good coach, think he's a good motivator, think he works well with players. If when they had the meeting, Sirianni explained and probably Desai sat in on the meeting too. This is what we want our defense to look like. This is what I'm going to ask you to do with your linebackers. He probably said, okay, works for me. And that's why he got the gig, because it became a, no, here are my ways of running it. No, you're the linebackers coach. You're not coming in to step on the new defensive coordinator's toes. I just thought that was the most interesting aspect of the new hire, that the type of defenses he's been playing don't exactly line up with what the Eagles did last year and what we assume they're going to do going forward next year under their new DC. All right, and there was a release of player yesterday, and I got to tell you, John, I was surprised by it. Am I like, oh my God, what are the Eagles thinking? Of course not, because Brett Toth, much like Mekhi Becton, may look like a football player, but you don't see him in a football uniform often enough. On the PUP list all year long, has had injury issues since he became an Eagle. They decided to sever ties and part ways with him yesterday. You've got a better read on this than me because you're down there, you're around the coaches, you see these guys. I always thought that they liked Toth and that they thought of Toth as a worthwhile project, that he could, when he got healthy enough, get on the field and actually potentially contribute to the Eagles. Timing of this, why do you think it came down now?
New league year. New league year. I lost you a little bit. I don't know if it's me or you, Jody, but I think you asked about the timing.
Yep.
And I would say, the new league year starts. It's you know, it's $1 million, a little bit over $1 million. You're talking about a guy, and I always said about Brett, it's like, all right, let me talk to the doctors, which I'm not allowed to, because they did like at one point. They were very upset when they lost him. Remember, he was an Army player in college. It was a big deal at the time when the Trump administration sort of changed the rule and allowed him to go play professional football. And the Eagles were really excited. They knew he was a project. One, he was in the Army, lost weight to do his job there, and he needed to gain some of that weight back. So they knew he was going to be somewhat of a project. And all of a sudden they waive him. They plan to get him on the practice squad as that happens. Arizona plucked him off waivers and they had him for a year. And the Eagles went and got him back. So they did like him. He's got tremendous versatility too. He's a natural tackle, played left tackle, played right. He got hurt in week 18 of 2021, if you remember, playing center. Jason Kelce took the first snap for the meaningless week 18 game to keep his streak alive. And then Brett Toth went in and played the whole game at center till he got hurt, tore his ACL, and wasn't able to make it back. So to me, it was always about, how healthy he is. And even that $1.1 million, whatever he was supposed to make this coming up season, if you're going to be a deep reserve, they're probably trying to save a couple bucks. They restructured Jake Elliott this morning, who makes a little bit, only makes a little bit in the large scheme of things, but every dollar counts when you're up against it, and it's not in the plans. And that injury really hurt Brett Toth. It really did.
And we've seen it before with the Eagles, with Toth himself. Becomes an ex-Eagle, then comes back and becomes an Eagle again, maybe at a future date, maybe at a lesser dollar figure. I don't know if they didn't like his work ethic trying to get back on the field this year, if that had anything to do with it. Your speculation on it's a money thing and nothing more than that is probably more on point. But we may not have seen the last of Brett Toth, but we have for now, which did come as a little bit of a surprise. You mentioned the Jake Elliott renegotiation. Just one other note, and then we're going to get our first guest up here. A new guy. We haven't had Brian Cameron, the Eagles editor for PhillySportsNetwork.com. Looking forward to talking to him. The whole Matt Patricia isn't going to be the Eagles linebacker coach thing. Darius Slay is not going anywhere. I know people have tried to put 2 and 2 together and come up with 5 that, they could trade Darius Slay and then they could re-sign James Bradbury if they wanted to move away from Slay, who had a less than stellar second half of the year. He's much better in the first half than he was in the second half. He is a guy who likes to stir the pot, and that might not be the Eagles' favorite part of Darius Slay's game. He's not going anywhere. He's got a $21 million dead cap hit if they trade him or cut him. It is a much more likely proposition that Darius Slay is going to get a contract extension because he's got a big cap hit this year on the final year of his deal. They're going to want to try and reduce that, which is going to equate to an extension, not a release, not a trade. I know people have attempted to, probably who don't understand the salary cap well enough, come up with a scenario where Darius Slay becomes an ex-Eagle. That's not happening, Johnny Mac. Darius Slay is going to be here this year.
No, he's going to be here. And Darius is like, I like to compare Darius and CJ because they're both, in the conversation. You can throw Brandon Graham in there as well because they both have these huge personalities, all 3 of them. But there's a difference with Brandon and Slay as well. They're leaders. I mean, they're leaders. They're team captains. I remember when Devin Allen got here and he was still doing the track stuff in the off season. And one of the Eagles staff told me, like, it was Slay who got the team together. They barely knew Devin Allen at the time, just got there, hadn't even been doing anything because he had been working on his track career. Didn't really get here till training camp. And he took them all down to watch him at the Penn relays just to get him involved with the team and embrace him as part of the team. And then you fast forward to training camp and Slay was really excited. The players vote on that team captain thing. It's not the coaching staff. At times, Doug did it one year, the pandemic year, just name captains. But Nick, since he's gotten here, it's the players who vote for the captains, and they voted for Slay as a captain. And then the second part is, and this is like AJ Brown as well. As good as, I'm not gross when it comes to Bradbury, right? I mean, I think he's a tremendous, tremendous player. But there is a difference between being the cornerback 1 and the cornerback 2. And Slay is one of the best cornerbacks in football. Slay is one of the few legitimate number 1 cornerbacks. I always like to say they're like starting pitchers in baseball. Well, you got to have 30 number 1s, but there aren't 30 number 1s. There are legit number 1s, and there are ones that are number 1s because they have to be defined. They're the best pitcher on that particular team. Slay is a legit cornerback number 1. And then when Bradbury fits in as the second corner, he's phenomenal. It's a perfect spot for him. Same thing with Devontae Smith. And we saw it in real time. Now, Devontae would have gotten better because he was a rookie player in his second season, even if A.J. Brown wouldn't have gotten here. But he's not A.J. Brown. And he's a great number 2. He'd be a good number 1, but he wouldn't be A.J. Brown. There's more to it when the other team is trying to do different things and trying to work again because they understand what you are as a player. Slay's a big, big time player.
Yeah, but would you admit that Bradbury had the better year of the 2? Career up to that point, put aside just who was better, and you can decide how you think the other teams attacked them over the course of the year. By the end of the year, I'm telling you, they're not throwing away from Darius Slay. They were throwing away from Bradbury more than Slay.
I don't agree with that.
Okay.
Second team All-Pro. Bradbury had the better year.
That's my point.
But part of that is because, and Bradbury will be the first to tell you this, part of that is because he gets to play in the opposite Slay. And that's kind of what I'm saying. I mean, Devontae Smith was. I heard people at the end of the year. My buddy Ed Kratz said it. Devontae's better than AJ. I heard that from people. Not a lot, not as many, not a lot, but I heard that from people. I said, no, he's not. He's a really good player, and people take that as an insult. He's a really good player. He's not AJ Brown. Same thing with Bradbury. Really good player. He's not Darius Slade. And if he was in that cornerback one role, it would be a lot more difficult for him. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. You and I kind of disagree on the cornerbacks. We see the wide receivers the same. Sorry, AJ Brown is just better at this point. He had a better career than Devontae Smith, and he had a better season than Devontae Smith. Darius Slay's had a better career than James Bradbury. James Bradbury had a better year this year. He was on the field the Eagles quarterback one. So I guess, you and I look at it a little bit differently. Hey, we'll try and get a third point of view on this. So we're hoping to punch up Brian Cameron, who is the PhillySportsNetwork.com Eagles managing editor. We've never had Brian on the show before. Looking forward to talking to him next here on Bird.